Yo, guys, say what's up? It's your boy here once again doing another video. Talk about a couple things. I want to talk about a new beginning, um, and New Japan kind of being in a rebuilding stage. Also want to talk about Chris Jericho. Jericho having a 1 hour interview with Tony Khan, the CEO for All Elite Wrestling, and then just kind of talk about give a couple thoughts on WrestleMania season. Um, so I'll start with the first thing off, new beginning. So New Japan had the New Beginning tour um, that concluded, I think, last weekend, or yeah, concluded like last weekend actually. Um, and the biggest thing to come out of it, the show was okay, but the biggest thing to come out of it was Jay White defeating Hiroshi Tanahashi to become the brand new IWGP heavyweight champion of the world. That was a shocker. Um, for me in particular, that was a shocker. For a lot of other people, not so much. I like Jay White. I always liked Jay White. Ever since Jay White, came back from his excursion, and he came back like 2 years ago, you knew they had something planned big for this guy. He immediately has his match. He was easily one of the top. He was billed as one of the top 3 or top 4 matches in Wrestle Kingdom. What was it, Wrestle Kingdom 12? Yeah, Wrestle Kingdom. No, Wrestle Kingdom 11. Going up against Tanahashi for the IC title. Um, he was short, but I mean, still, like, going up against the Ace for the Intercontinental title at the biggest pay per view from New Japan. That's nothing to sneeze at. Then from there, they teased the Bullet Club, him joining the Bullet Club, but he turns on Kenny Omega and ends up joining Chaos instead. And then from there, he goes and he beats Kenny Omega for the IWGP United States title. From there, moves on to Kazuchi Okada, turns on Okada with Naito, not Naito, Geto, with Geto, who has been, pivotal to Okada's career for, the last 2 or 3 years. Geto turns on Okada with Jay White. Jay White kind of has this thing where he, announces himself as the new leader of Chaos. Then he goes up against Kazuchi Okada at this past Wrestle Kingdom last month, beats Okada, uh, ends up becoming the new leader for Bullet Club, and now he beat Tanahashi again, but this time for the heavyweight championship and is the new world champion. Just within the 2 month span, this guy has had a rocket lit up his ass. And at first, when he first won the title, it was a shocker to me because I was like, you knew New Japan had something for Jay White, and you knew that Jay White was going to be one of their, top players. But I didn't think that they would put the strap on him this fast. And at first, it was kind of like, man, I don't know if this guy is ready. He doesn't feel ready to win the heavyweight title right now. I thought he would just get the opportunity, lose it, and maybe somewhere down the road, maybe even later this year, he'll get it. But I didn't think he'd get it this soon. But the more I sat and thought about it, the more it kind of started to make sense and why they chose Jay White in being the heavyweight champion. The whole situation with the New Japan right now, looking at it, is very similar and reminds me of 3 or 4 years ago when New Japan kind of went in this rebuilding phase. Because remember, 3 or 4 years ago, they lost AJ Styles, Shinsuke Nakamura, and both Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows all in one fell swoop to WWE. All 4 of those guys were WWE bound. At that point, New Japan needed some new stars. They needed some people to plug in place and fill those gaps, because AJ Styles, Nakamura, Luke, and Carl Anderson, they left the hole there. So people like Kenny Omega had to step up. The Young Bucks, along with the Gorillas of Destiny, had to step up in the tag team division. I'm trying to see Naito, who was already a fan favorite anyway. He still had to step up even more. Um, so it was interesting to see, and they did. They stepped up. Now you fast forward to 2019, Young Bucks are gone. Uh, Young Bucks are gone. Kushida is gone. Uh, Cody Rhodes gone, and Kenny Omega, who was their heavyweight champion, also gone. So they're kind of in that same position now than they were 3 years ago when AJ Styles and Nakamura and the others left. They were put in that same position again. So now New Japan have to step up, or not step up, but new stars have to step up to fill those gaps. And if Jay White is going to be one of those big players, one of the main event gaijin wrestlers, then it was probably the best call. It probably was, because looking at New Beginning, it was a little lacking. Their presence was definitely kind of felt. The Omegas, the Bucks, Rhodes, them leaving, it was kind of felt. So I think Jay White being heavyweight champion, it makes sense. Coming out of it now, it makes sense. Roll the dice. Let's take it. Let's see where it goes. And I commend them for giving it a chance. And obviously, this is Gatos, his whole booking philosophy. If he believes in Jay White, then I say let's see where it takes us. I mean, because it wasn't, if memory serves me right, the same thing happened with Kazuchi Okada. They slapped the belt on Kazuchi Okada. A lot of people felt he wasn't really ready. It was kind of like out of nowhere. But you look at Kazuchi Okada, and Okada is one of the greatest world heavyweight champions of all time. Not even just within New Japan, but I will even just put him in just the wrestling world, period. To me, he has cemented his legacy as one of the greatest of all time, and he's only 29 years old. So he's still a very young guy, prime of his age and the prime of his career. And Geto rolled the dice with him, and him being heavyweight champion at a young age, and look at where it's taken him. So AJ Styles becoming heavyweight IWGP heavyweight champion in his first night debuting in New Japan cemented AJ's legacy in his career. And so when I think of it from that perspective, Jay White is not a bad choice in being heavyweight champion. So I mean, yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting, and on top of that too, I mean, like I said, it's not like he just kind of won this, like out of nowhere. They have been building him up, and he has taken out some big names along the way before winning the heavyweight title. He had his debut match with Tanahashi for the Intercontinental title. Didn't win, but it was a great spot at one of the biggest pay-per-views of the year, and he was one of the top 3 build matches. He beats Kenny Omega for the United States title, who was a former IWGP heavyweight champion in himself. He beats Okada. No one thought that would happen. He now is allied himself with Bullet Club, is now the new leader of Bullet Club. Which some people are kind of complaining about that. They don't see Jay White, being a good leader for Bullet Club, as well as, they kind of argue the issue that Jay White being in Bullet Club is a good thing because it kind of brings the club back to its original roots. Whereas when the club was under Kenny Omega's reign, Omega it was never really about Bullet Club. Bullet Club kind of played the background noise to what Kenny and the Bucks were doing as the Elite, and that the Elite were the main focus group of Bullet Club. I don't think Bullet Club was dead under Kenny Omega's reign. I do kind of understand how some people might have had, uh, uh, you know, some of their negativity was, with Omega being under Bullet Club or under his leadership, was that they really weren't the main focus. I can kind of understand some of that, but I don't think Bullet Club was ruined under Kenny Omega. If anything, I think Kenny Omega kind of helped elevate Bullet Club to a more, uh, uh, I think it gave it a little bit more notoriety. Bullet Club was at its peak, I think, with AJ Styles as leader, but a lot of hardcore wrestling fans knew of Bullet Club. I think since Omega has become leader and they've kind of branched out a little bit, doing things with the Spencer selling, not Spencer's, Hot Topic, selling their shirts at Hot Topic and having exclusive pop figures and stuff like that. The whole Bullet Club brand, I think, has kind of expanded a little bit more outside of Japan, where even casual fans are kind of noticing Bullet Club, and you're seeing more Bullet Club shirts and stuff in WWE arenas since Omega has become leader, had become leader, than when it was under AJ's rule. So that's my opinion on that. But you know, uh, Jay White being the leader of Bullet Club, I'm fine with it. It's cool. Let's see where they go with it. But definitely, I think New Japan are definitely in a rebuilding phase. Jay White, I think, is going to be one of those new guys they push. Not Hiroshi Tanahashi, Kota Ibushi. Kota Ibushi said in New Beginnings, I think his contract did expire like 2 months ago, but he was working with New Japan on like a 2 month extension, um, which was interesting. But he said that he is staying with New Japan. So Kota Ibushi, I mean, if for so many years, fans have always liked Kota Ibushi, and fans have always kind of wanted Kota Ibushi to be one of those major four players, and we know he can be that. But man, if they're ever going to make Kota Ibushi one of the top guys in New Japan, one of the big four, now is that time. Now that Kenny Omega's out of the way, it's smooth sailing for Kota Ibushi. If Kota Ibushi is not headlining Wrestle Kingdom next year for the heavyweight title, my God, New Japan, what the F are you doing? Um, so right now, I think they're in the rebuilding phase with New Japan. So it'll definitely be interesting to see where they go moving forward, especially going in towards the New York show, the Supercard, because there was rumors that originally the main event was going to be Kenny Omega versus Kazuchika Okada 5 for the heavyweight title, and Okada would win the belt back. But since Omega, they knew like back late last year that Omega was probably not going to resign, they kind of changed the course of things. So that's why they took the belt off of Omega at Wrestle Kingdom this past January against Tanahashi. And instead, it's going to be Jay White, and they're going to place Jay White and the spot that they would have planned for Omega. So we may end up getting Okada versus Jay White for the Madison Square Garden show between New Japan and ROH for the heavyweight title, and Okada might win it back there. I don't know. We'll see if those rumors turn out to be true. If Okada does face Jay White for the heavyweight title at the New York show, then it will probably confirm those rumors that I'm speaking of right now. If not, it'll definitely be interesting to see who would Jay White face, because as of right now, he has no opponents going up for the heavyweight title. So moving on from that, Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho just had on his Talk is Jericho podcast an hour. It was like an hour, 14-minute interview with Tony Khan. Excuse me for a second, guys. All right, sorry. I had to reposition my seating. Yeah, so he beat, so Chris Jericho podcast, Tony Khan. Those released yesterday or the day before, Talk is Jericho podcast. Very good interview. For anybody who has any doubts, worries, or concerns about AEW, what it would be, or just want to know a little bit more about Tony Khan and the Khan family, this is the interview to listen to, like for sure. Um, the interview Tony Khan had with uh, X Pac a month ago on the AfterBuzz was good. The one he had here with Jericho, I thought, was even better. Uh, I mean, Tony Khan is a wrestling fan. I've said this before, and this interview with Jericho just reiterates that. Tony Khan knows his shit when it comes to wrestling. This guy has done tape trading. He was a fan of old school ECW. He was a fan of WCW. He was a fan of WWE. He's a fan of wrestling. He's a fan of wrestling, and he knows what he's doing. Jericho asked him questions about, how, what made you want to start a wrestling company. And Tony Khan mentioned, he said he always wanted to start a wrestling company, except he thinks that, the timing just wasn't right until right now. He looked in, he feels the climate he felt was just kind of right for it, because he said there was a lack of it's been 20 years since we've had really another mainstream wrestling company in North America. He looked at the market. He looked at a lot of guys who contracts were expiring. He did notice that. Jericho asked him, was like, so you knew that, some guys, he was like, yeah, absolutely. He paid attention to certain key talents, contracts that he knew were coming to an expiration date. He also looked at it from the perspective of, a lot of TV stations and networks were kind of interested in wanting wrestling back again. That, in his opinion, networks want to work with wrestling again. And so with all those things put together, he was like, hey, you know what? This is the perfect time. So when, the Young Bucks and Cody Rhodes, he met with them. And I think they had met a year prior. They had formed a relationship, a friendship or whatever. That, everything came together. He was like, hey, you know what? Let's do this. He told his father he wrote a 5-year business plan, which is what he should have done. It was the right thing to do. He wrote a business plan to his father and laid it out to him and saying, like, hey, this is why it makes sense as to, you should invest in All Elite Wrestling. Here's why. His father believed in him. And he said that his father didn't give him money. He just said, oh, okay, well, here's your pet project. So I'm just going to throw money at you. Like, you would say the Carter family done for Dixie Carter. But he said the only reason why his father invested money was because when his son wrote out the business plan and presented it to him, it made sense, business sense, as to why his father would invest however much money into this project. Tony Khan mentioned, he said that even though they have a lot of money, they're not looking to sign everybody. He says, that's the thing. They're not looking to sign everybody, to an exclusive deal. He was like, we just don't have the money for that. And that's smart, because that was one of the problems that TNA had back in its early years. They just signed in and everybody. And then, it's like you sign in and everybody and you really can't afford everybody. It caused TNA some problems. You look at WWE. WWE are the monopoly of professional wrestling, and they have so much talent, and yet still not enough TV time is distributed between, certain stars or whatever, because they just have too much talent. They really do. So Tony Khan was like, he says, hey, having a small roster, of talent. He said that there will be more to come. There is more talent they're looking to sign. But, just to have a nice core group of small talent, he thinks that, and bring them up to a national level, give them that exposure, he thinks is the best way to go. And I totally, absolutely agree. All Elite Wrestling does not need to have 250 wrestlers like WWE has, because WWE has that, and we see how they are. They just it's too much. Um, Tony Khan is even said he's not looking to be, direct competition. He's not looking to, bring back the Monday Night Wars, or you know have a heated competition. But he feels that, you know, the market needs another alternative in mainstream professional wrestling. And him being, a sports, being this is sports analytics and whatnot, he's going to take that knowledge and, apply that to AEW, where he says wins and losses will matter, which is something that they have preached since the beginning, of AEW's inception. Um, I mean, Tony Khan seems like a really cool guy. He knows his stuff. I think what's really admirable about him is that, okay, he's a two things. He's a businessman that knows his shit, but he's also a wrestling fan. And I think you need a little bit of both if you're going to run a wrestling business. I think you can't really be just a wrestling fan, but don't have the finances to fund a wrestling company or spread yourself thin. And then you can't really be just all about the business, but not really have the heart and the love for professional wrestling, but you're just pouring money into it. But other than that, you really don't know how to run it. It needs to be a combination of both. And I think Tony Khan is the right person. If you're to say who should, run a multi-million dollar wrestling company, a new mainstream type wrestling company, Tony Khan, to me, from this interview and the previous interview before it with X-Pac, is like the right type of person. Um, and even Ted Turner. Ted Turner was a fan of wrestling. Only problem with Ted Turner was that Ted Turner kind of had some of the wrong key people, and running WCW, to where he really wasn't overseeing it as much. He loved wrestling. Ted Turner funded WCW, but because he had so many other businesses and things going on, Ted Turner wasn't really watching WCW. It's like he had Eric Bischoff and other people run it. He just gave them money. Um, I don't think that'll be the case with Tony Khan. Tony Khan did say, he's busy as is with, being a sports analytics, and he has his own company as well. But that, he will be running everything that goes with, all elite wrestling. All elite wrestling will be his main focus, just like all his other business ventures. So I think that was cool to hear as well. One of the interesting things I thought, coming out of this interview, was that if you listen to it, Chris Jericho was kind of pushing some buttons. And what I mean by that is Chris Jericho made quite a few references to WWE. Tony Khan never mentioned anything about WWE. Chris Jericho was like, well, yeah, um, you know, how is it, you want to sign guys? Because, one of the biggest problems that, WWE, they have too many guys, they're the monopoly and they have just too many guys. And, you don't want to be like that. And Tony Khan just never really addresses it. Jericho has made like 3 references. And maybe Jericho just kind of wants to stir up the pot. Maybe did that purposely, for fans, because there are a lot of fans that just automatically they want to draw the line and make a war between All Elite and WWE. But Jericho had made quite a couple of references, and taking a little shots at WWE. And Tony Khan just ignored it. He never mentioned it, or anything like that. And to me, that really shows me that they're not trying to be, the second coming of WCW. They're not trying to go head to head in a Monday Night War competition with Vince McMahon. When he says we want to be an alternative, we want to do our own thing and bring something new and fresh to the table, he means it. The guy means it. So, for a lot of, wrestling fans that go out there, fans who are already fans of All Elite Wrestling and are already drawing the lines and saying All Elite's going to take WWE over, they're going to run them out of business and blah blah blah. It's like, stop, because the head of All Elite himself, Tony Khan, the man is financing this company. That's not his mindset, and to me, that's the right way to go. That is the right way to go. The Monday Night Wars are over. We're not going to get them back. This is a new era. Let's enjoy a new mainstream wrestling company without having them want to compete directly head to head every Monday night in the same time slot with WWE. Like, let's not do that. Let's not. Having another alternative competition will be good for wrestlers, the fans, and it'll force WWE to do something better. But yeah, I highly recommend you guys check that out. Talk is Jericho with Tony Khan. Very good listen. Very good. One of the best podcast episodes I've heard in a while from Chris Jericho. So I recommend you guys listen to that. Moving on to WWE. WrestleMania season is 50 days away. We are in WrestleMania season, but we're 50 days from WrestleMania. Tomorrow, as a matter of fact, is Elimination Chamber. I don't know how I feel about those guys for WrestleMania. I'm not that hyped for this year's WrestleMania. Like, I'm not. Maybe partially because I don't know what's going to happen, which I'm not going to complain about, because sometimes, over the last 3 or 4 Manias, we've kind of known what the main event was going to be like a year in advance, and a lot of matches actually. So to not really know where they're going to go going into WrestleMania this year, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with not knowing, but there's really nothing that has me hyped, so to speak. I like what they're doing with Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey. I know a lot of fans on the internet have been losing their minds from this past Monday Night Raw, where Becky had apologized to Triple H and Stephanie for her behaviors over the last week. McMahon comes out and says Becky is suspended indefinite, and in her place will be Charlotte to face Ronda Rousey. A lot of people have just been in an uproar and complaining about it. It's like, guys, we have 50 days to WrestleMania. Like, let's see where it goes first. Yes, I've heard the rumors of it might change into a triple threat because WWE wants Charlotte to be in the main event. Yes, I get that fans just want Becky and Ronda, no Charlotte. I get all that, but let's see how it plays out first. If anything, the way I see it as a great angle to put heat on Charlotte, because Charlotte's a heel right now. Put heat on her, and it just rallies more fans behind Becky and being the ultimate babyface in this feud. So that's how I see it. Something could happen where, actually, as a matter of fact, it was leaked. Now I'm thinking about it. It was leaked. WWE's next pay-per-view is Fastlane, which is in March. It was leaked that on the title card, it was going to be a match between Charlotte versus Becky. Winner of that match will take on Ronda Rousey for the title at WrestleMania. I did see that. So that'll be interesting. In that case, I think that would probably answer everyone's questions, that Becky would win. Yeah, it's a good thing I'm mentioning it now, because I did see that a couple of days ago, that it was advertised wherever they're having Fastlane pay-per-view. It was advertised Becky Lynch versus Charlotte. Winner gets Ronda at WrestleMania. But to me, if they stick with that idea, it's still kind of stupid, because then what was the point of Becky winning the Royal Rumble if, her offer is going to be put up? It kind of reminds me, going back to what they did with, remember when Roman Reigns won the Royal Rumble? Roman Reigns won the Royal Rumble. And was it 2014, 15? And at that time, Daniel Bryan, I think it came back from like an injury or whatever. But Daniel Bryan had never lost the WWE title. So a lot of fans were complaining and saying, Bryan never lost the title. He deserves his rematch. He should go up and face Brock Lesnar. But then Roman won the Royal Rumble. He also has a right. So then at Fastlane, they made it Roman versus Bryan. Winner of that match faces Brock for the title. It ended up being Roman. This is exactly just like that. God, WWE, they have no creativity at all. But going back to my main point, um, what they're doing right now with inserting Charlotte into that spot and taking out Becky, to me, is smart booking. It just puts heat on Charlotte, gets more fans to rally behind Becky, but fans don't see that. They just complain and bitch, like they always do. Rollins versus Brock Lesnar. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm glad it's Rollins. I'm happy for my boy, Seth Rollins. I don't know. Something's like it's something's missing there. I know Rollins is kind of is kind of licking his wounds. Apparently, he might be kind of hurt or have some sort of injury. So WWE are taking him off all live events, and he's not going to be wrestling. For over the next few months because they want to save him for WrestleMania. Um, I think that's fine. That's okay. Uh, as long as he's on TV, I think it's fine. Keep Rollins fresh for as long as you can before his match at WrestleMania. Um, I don't know what they're going to do with the WWE title scene, the SmackDown side of things. Like I said, Elimination Chamber is tomorrow. The day of me recording this, it is tomorrow. I'm not excuse me. I'm not really that excited or pumped for Elimination Chamber. The card is kind of weak in my opinion, minus the Chamber match itself. The Chamber match for the WWE title, I think is going to be a good one. Um, but I don't. The rest of the pay per view card is kind of weak to me, in my opinion. I don't even care about about the crowning of the first ever women's tag team champion in WWE history. I don't even care about that, really, to be honest. Um, I did hear that there have been rumblings or rumors going back to last year that for SmackDown, at least the WWE title, uh, it would be a feud between AJ Styles and Randy Orton. AJ Styles being champion and Randy being the challenger and taking the belt off AJ. That still could happen. Um, but and those rumors were kind of reignited. I think about a month ago that it could be AJ versus Orton for the title at Mania, with Orton just being the challenger. But it's like I don't know because right now Daniel Bryan is probably the best thing going right now on SmackDown. So it's like why chop off his heat that he's getting and kind of snub him. And I think it'd be cool to have Daniel Bryan as WWE champion going into WrestleMania this year, just because it's I don't know. Last time Bryan was champion at WrestleMania, he won it. Since then, we haven't seen Bryan at Mania as WWE champion. He won the world title. I mean, sorry, he lost the world title against Sheamus, 6-7 years ago. But I'm speaking as far as the WWE title. He's never entered WrestleMania as champ. So if Bryan does successfully defend the title, I don't know where do they go with him because who would you put in that roster? I don't think Randy Orton will be WWE champion, at least not in 2019. Um, I don't see AJ getting it back because then what would you do with AJ? Um, shit, maybe Jeff Hardy. I guess. Uh, I wouldn't mind seeing Jeff Hardy as WWE champion again, but Jeff definitely would have to be like a transitional champion. Um, man, this is really really hard. Like I don't know what they could do. What would the WrestleMania picture look like on the SmackDown side of things? Man, I don't know. Not Nakamura. R-Truth is U.S. champion. maybe R-Truth can hopefully, well, not hopefully, maybe he can drop the U.S. title to Andreas, uh, and Andreas Almas can continue his feud with Rey Mysterio for the U.S. title at WrestleMania. That'd be a good match. I'd like to see that, because they've been killing it on SmackDown. Um, what's another one? I don't know. What do they do with my boy Drew McIntyre? Like, I don't know. Where does Drew McIntyre go in WrestleMania? Would it be a tag match between him and Baron Corbin against uh, Braun Strowman and Kurt Angle? I don't know. WrestleMania season just does not feel that hot to me. There's a couple of interesting things WWE are doing, but 50 days away, it's plenty of time. But I'm not feeling it this year. I don't know. I don't know. You guys let me know what you think about all these things I've talked about. Jay White being IWGP Heavyweight Champion. What are your thoughts on that going forward with New Japan? What are your thoughts on the interview between Tony Khan and All Elite Wrestling? I mean, Tony Khan and Chris Jericho podcast. Have you heard the interview? What did you think of it? And what are your thoughts on WrestleMania season 35 going forward? I want to hear your thoughts in the box below. Do yourself a favor, hit the like button, comment, and subscribe. Peace.